his mic is working.
Mic's not working.
Is there no mic?
There you go.
We have a little technical difficulties. We're cool now. All right, so I'm going to do something a little different. Normally, I have a big PowerPoint presentations and people stand behind the podium, and I am fucking terrible at those things. No, I'm just going to do what I do, which is tell stories. And this whole thing is kind of based around a question I get all the time. A question actually, probably since I started this industry until now, of how do you get into this industry, or how did you get into this industry? In fact, last night, and I'm going to have to reference my phone because this literally just happened last night, somebody sent a tweet at me about this, and I'm going to butcher this person's name, so I apologize in advance. Menviv Krishna Cory wrote to us, hey, Brian Tahar, Cory Barlog, I want to become a creative director just like you people. I'm a computer science undergrad student. He's actually in Cincinnati, Ohio, I think, going to UC. And he says, can you please suggest to me what to do, what steps to take? So this is going to poorly answer your question, so this is dedicated to you, Megwish. Normally, the short answer, I say, is listen to the voices in your head. Because you hear voices in your head, don't you? I mean, we all do. And that confuses people, and it requires really a longer 60-minute answer, but nobody wants you to sit here and give them a 60-minute answer to a question. But you guys are stuck here, and you have to listen to the 60-minute answer, so sorry. All right, so for me, I actually didn't even think I was going to get into any of this stuff. When I was in high school, I loved movies. I wanted to work in the movie business. In fact, I wanted to be an actor. And I did some stuff, and I was really terrible. I was a terrible actor. And I realized, okay, I probably wasn't going to be very good at this, and probably wasn't succeed. But I knew I wasn't going to be able to go to college in the sense that I looked at it as a traditional university. You know, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be very good at a university. I'm going to take a business class or something like that. I didn't really realize you could go to school for film, right? And there was a voice in my head kind of telling me, oh, you should look into it, you should try it. But I wasn't listening to that. And the louder voice was my parents, who sat me down and said, you really need to go to school. And I had decided 2 weeks before classes would start. This was like the beginning of August. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to go to school. And fortunately, we had some scholarship opportunity from my aunt and uncle. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go to school. And we decide 2 weeks before class started, I'm going to go to school. I applied to Columbia College in Chicago, which is a film school. 2 weeks later, I'm in the dorms and I'm going to my first class. Because it's an open enrollment school, which basically means if you have a heartbeat and a check, you're good. And in the heartbeat, I think, is emotional, right? The check is really the only thing that matters.
Yep.
Actually, it's a really good school. Janusz Kamiński went there. He's the director of photography of Cool as Ice. I mean, he also did Schindler's List, but Cool as Ice is the second one. Everybody knows him for that. So yeah, a lot of really good people went to that school. And I went in with these sort of big ideas that I was going to be a film director. And for the first year in school, I studied and worked really hard. But the big thing about film is it's a very collaborative process, right? You have to have actors and crew. You have to work together. And everybody in the film program, I was talking about a lot of people whose inspirations were Fellini and all these other phenomenal directors, Bergman. But, again, I wasn't really in the art house. Soon, Star Wars influenced me and inspired me. I was a nerd. And there was one other kid in the class who actually was inspired by a similar film. And he was really good. I hope he ended up going on to make movies. I have no idea. And I was, very optimistic. One of the unspoken rules of that school was you had to crew other people's films. So you had to help out and go and sort of crew the other films so that they would then crew your film. And I crewed, I think, like 7 or 8 films throughout the year. And when it came time for my film, nobody showed up. Like, nobody, not even the actors, nobody. So I had to get my roommates, and we ran around Chicago with a Bolex, and I made up a movie because I couldn't shoot the one that I planned. And it was horrible. I mean, it was just abysmal. And I was really despondent and kind of losing faith that I could do this. And I was like, all right, obviously I'm terrible at this, and nobody really wants to help out. And I had another roommate, because I had 3 roommates at the time, and he made an entire film on his computer. And I was like, oh my gosh, you didn't have to rely on anybody showing up. You just were able to do this on your own. And so that kind of opened my eyes to the idea that animation was a possibility. I could actually do these things. So I studied hand-drawn animation, was just abysmal at that. I can't draw to save my life. I really thought I could, but I really could not. And then I did stop motion, which is really fun, but very tedious, and I was also pretty terrible at that. But my roommate had an Amiga 3000. So I had found, scrapped some money together, got an Amiga 1200, and started using 3D programs, one called Imagine 3.0. And the 1200 was a computer that did not have a hard drive, so you had to use the disks. So I had a 3D program on 8 disks. Like when you had a sphere and you wanted to boolean the sphere, you had to put in disk number 3 in order to execute that operation. It was insane. But I was really into it. I thought, this is amazing. So I just absolutely immersed myself in it for 3 years, studied everything I could, started using Lightwave and, learning about the stuff they were doing like Babylon 5 and Jimmy Neutron, and just really trying to be the best I could at this. And after about 3 years, surprisingly, I'm a loudmouth, I started, getting really frustrated with the classes, because I felt like, I know more than the teachers. Ego's going to go through this whole story, by the way. Awesome. And I was sort of getting frustrated on our animation classes. And all the teachers, or a majority of the teachers, are professionals working in the industry in Chicago, so like Bungie and Midway, and the guys who did Mech Warrior, they were all in Chicago. So they were all teachers here, and great people, really good at their jobs, but not necessarily teachers, so it was a hard situation. And I'm complaining one day and somebody goes, you talk a lot. I bet you couldn't get a job. I was like, oh yeah? I totally could get a job. I bet you I could get a job. And they're like, all right, how much? I'm like, $50. So I quit school on a $50 bet that I could get a job. And so I got a job at Funko Land, which is like the 1990s version of GameStop. I was selling used games, and worked on the demo reel, night and day, for like 6 months. Ended up with a 2.5-minute demo reel that was, I thought really good. I didn't think I'd do the best, right? And I researched all over the place, back at Cinefex magazine and games magazines, and addresses on video games and stuff, and amassed 300 copies of the demo reel, 300 cover letters, and sent them out to game and visual effects houses, with the highest of hopes, thinking this was going to be just the greatest thing ever. And then a month of nothing, absolute silence, right? Nobody responded whatsoever, and I started getting very nervous that I was going to lose that $50, because that was super important. Not the fact that I had a crappy apartment and no money, and I was working at a used game store where I didn't finish my education. That didn't matter. It was the $50 that was really important. So it was not until I got out of jail that I ended up getting 2 phone calls. Is jail, you say? Right, yeah. Rewind the story a little bit. So at the time I had very bright yellow manic panic hair. I thought I was so cool. It was ridiculous. But I was hanging out with some friends one night. I drove home, and I lived in an apartment where I had to park very, very far away from my apartment and walk. And I was walking down the street. Cop comes up next to me, and I'm like, hey, innocently waving at them. And the light comes on, covering my eyes. They just jump out of the car, cop rock style, all aggressive, getting in my face, and what did you get this? You're the freak that did this. And I was like, what the fuck? So I had no clue what to say. And there's this little voice in my head telling me, shut up, shut up. And so I'm listening to that one and shutting up. And they kind of just throw me put the cuffs on me, throw me in the back of the car, pull the car around to an alleyway where it's like a damn movie set. I mean, there's 3 cop cars with their lights on and all these other cops around. It really was like cop rock at at that time. So they pulled me out, put me in the center of these other cars, and they're, getting in my face and not telling me what it is I did, but insisting that whatever it is I did, do it. And this voice is, saying, don't say anything. Well, there's this other voice that's like, fuck that, man, you should say something. I listened to that voice. And that was dumb. That was really dumb. It's like, give me your badge number or some indignant, stupid thing like that. And they were not having that at all. And just kind of smacked me around a bit, threw me in the car, and took me to jail. I got bugged. I got to call my roommate, who was asleep because it was like 1 in the morning, and he didn't answer his phone. So I left a message like, hey dude, you should come get me out of jail when you wake up at your leisure. And they put me in the cell, and it was probably right about that time that they arrested somebody for burglarizing the building that we were standing next to. The person who actually did whatever it is that they said that I was supposed to have done. And so they totally knew that that wasn't me. But they still kept me in jail because I talked back, and they were like, I think they said it was, I don't even know what the hell they said it was, but they were basically saying that you were indignant. So my roommate came and picked me up the next day. I was really just frustrated to no end because nobody had called. I wasn't going to get that $50, and I just went to jail for something I had no idea what the hell it was. So I get home, and I'm starting to think that I probably need to go back to school because I don't like working at Funko Land, and I probably will talk back even more the next time something stupid like that happens. And I get a call. In fact, that day I got 2 calls. One from 3D Realms, and one from Dream Quest Images, which is like the Disney live-action visual effects. They were doing Armageddon, they just done Kundun, and then they were doing Mighty Joe Young, right? So I had a couple calls with 3D Realms, right? And they were talking about, hey, we just finished Duke Atomic Edition, everybody who did that, made a lot of money, they just drive Ferraris now. And I was like, oh, and the voice in my head is like, tell me more. And he's like, we don't pay a lot here, but we're working on a really big project, and it's going to be even bigger than the ones that we had done. So we'd really like to have you there. And what they were offering, it's not all about money, so even though I'm saying this, it's not all about money, but what they were offering was exactly the salary I was making at a used game store. And I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. But he said, everybody, makes a lot of money when the game ships. That's where you're gonna make your money, is when the game ships. Like I said, they're gonna start Ferraris, because apparently, at that time, in the Texas game industry, if you made money, you bought a Ferrari. Like everyone was buying a Ferrari. Ferraris for everybody, right? It was all around, it was awesome. But there was this other voice in my head that was like, run, right? And I sort of listened to that voice, and I was good to listen to that voice, because the game he was describing was Duke Nukem Forever. Yeah. Right? And that shipped in 2011. So I don't think I could have afforded a Ferrari in 2011 by the time that game would come out. And so I had the interviews on the phone with Dreamquest, and it went well, so they decided to fly me out to California. That alone was like a big deal. I was like, California, sweet, I'm gonna do this. So I called my parents. I've never had a job interview before, like a real one. Funko doesn't count. But like a real one where they're gonna, hope that I can do something. And both my mom and my dad were like, you need to wear a suit. Wear a suit. Very 1950s sort of thought process on this one. So I was like, all right, I don't know any better. I wear a suit on the plane, and then the guy who's taking me to the interview picks me up wearing a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, which is what everyone else in the company was wearing. And I'm the only one walking in with a suit, and they're just like, what are you here with an MBA or something? What's going on? So the interview went well despite my poor wardrobe choice. Afterwards, I actually drove out to the ocean, right? I drove out to Venice Beach and sort of stood on there. Point of fact in this story, the only time I was at the ocean for the 20 years I lived in California, actually I went a couple other times, but really never ago. I don't know why that was important to me, but it was like I did it. And then before I flew back, they called and said that they wanted to make an offer. So they were going to mail an offer letter because email wasn't really big then. So I got back, the offer letter detailed out like how much and like the contract length and corporate housing for 30 days and a rental car and all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, and they're going to pay to move my stuff out to California? Sign me up, right? And I get out there, my stuff is on its way, and the first day, the HR guy brings me in the office and hands me the contract, right? This is the official signing that you're officially an employee here. I don't know anything about the law or contracts or anything like that. But I knew enough that what they had in the offer letter was a lot more, and they had lowered it by like 20%. And then they had decreased the contract length, and then they had decreased the amount of corporate housing from 30 days to 15 days, and no rental car. And I was like, I think this is different than what you guys said in the offer letter. He's like, very, stern. Like, look, either sign this or we'll send you home. And I was like, whoa. Wow. All right, it's very aggressive. This is my first job, ever out of college. So I was like, all right. But that point right there was like a really strong learning experience for me, and I'm glad it happened immediately. It helped me understand it. And this doesn't happen everywhere. It's not to say that every company is like this, but nobody really has your interests in mind. The moment you start taking control of your own interests is the moment you're really taking control of your own career, because nobody else is going to look out for you. They're looking out for their interests or the company's interests, right? But I've met a lot of great people throughout these years that have treated me very well, so it's not always like that, but always be aware. For me, at least, I realized that I needed to do that, but I wasn't equipped to do that, so it built this bitterness inside of me. And that year I spent at DreamQuest was rough, right? Because one, I realized visual effects maybe wasn't for me. I loved animating, but I also loved movies, and I didn't like making bad movies and having no impact on changing the movie itself. I was working with people who were in their 50s who had Academy Awards for visual effects, and the visual effects supervisor, and they don't really have any power to change it. So I was realizing, the voice in my head telling me this maybe isn't for you. But I was also a pain in the ass and a loudmouth throughout all that experience. And someone had suggested, hey, you should try games. Maybe you'll be able to elevate to a little bit more creative control. Subtext of that was, we're going to fire you if you don't go over the games. Message received. So I got one of the recruiters. They had game recruiters at the time, and hooked up with this really cool recruiter. And she connected me with a company called Cyclone Studios. And they were working on a first-person shooter called Requiem Avenging Angel. And you were like this angel that had guns and these superpowers that you could make people's blood boil and turn them into a pillar of salt. It was kind of cool. At the time, really framing this at the time, it was like, oh, this is going to be fun. It was a really neat experience, great people. But when we were nearly finished, we were releasing our demo, and our demo was just like a boss battle with Lilith. It was very short. It was like an 8-minute, demo. The Half-Life 1 demo came out, right before we were going to release our demo. Yeah, their demo was better than our whole game, like 10 times over. And that's not an assessment that people worked on it, because they worked hard and they did the best that they could, but Half-Life fundamentally changed the way people even looked at approaching games. So one of the caveats of going to Cyclone was I was like, I don't want to work for 3DO. Cyclone was owned by 3DO. And at the time, Trip Hawkins, the guy who ran it, was really big on this concept of brand recognition. Great guy, but he believed very strongly that people would associate with brands. So he wanted to get more brand ubiquity out there, like Army-Men. And I was like, I don't want to work on an Army-Men game. But he's like, yeah, if everybody knows Army-Men, then that's really important. The quality of the game is important. And I was like, oh, that bumps me out. So I go work at 3DO because I don't really have any other choice. And thankfully I'm not on an Army-Men game. I get put on a Might and Magic game. And I'm a super big Might and Magic fan. So I was really bummed that it was a terrible game. It was a PSX game, so it was a new hardware that not everybody was familiar with, and you had a really short development cycle. That is going to be pervasive throughout all of this story, is that short development cycles, right? Rushing these games out. And, you know, I started to realize, like, all right, maybe this isn't for me. The voice in my head is telling me, you should make a movie, man. You should totally do this. You saved up a little bit of money. Get out of here. Go make a movie. So I ended up leaving there, going down to Los Angeles. A few months later, they asked people to start giving a pay cut. And Trip Hawkins puts his own money into the company. So it struggled. And then shortly after that, 3DM closes. So I don't know if my voice was psychic, but I'm just saying, call me now for your free reading. It's totally, I'm psychic. So I go down to Los Angeles, and I get into an acting class so I can meet people. Because it's really hard to meet people who want to get into the movies in Los Angeles. Yeah. No, they're literally everywhere. But I met a lot of great people, and you know, it didn't really get off the ground. A lot of great high aspirations, wrote some stuff, but nothing ever really happened with it. And all the while, this voice in my head was telling me, you probably should get a job. You probably should get a job. I ignored it for a while, and then it started shouting at me really, really loud. And then I realized, oh crap, I should get a job. And that realization was when I realized I was 2 weeks away from being totally broke. And by that I mean I literally had no money. I would be evicted from my apartment because I had no money to pay the rent. I would lose my car, and I had no money for food. So, not a good planner. I am very bad at that. This is why there's no PowerPoint presentation. Alright, so I called the same recruiter that I was working with, and I said, alright, I need a job, I need it fast. And by that I mean, I don't just need a job in 2 weeks, I need a paycheck in 2 weeks. She laughed and said, alright, call me back in 10 minutes. And so she calls me back in like 7 minutes and says, alright, go to this address, talk to these people, I've already talked you up, and you should be good. So I went there. There's a place called Paradox Development, run by Christine Shu. And she was great, and they hired me on the spot. I started the next day. I wasn't actually going to get paid in 2 weeks, but they understood the situation, so helped me out, and I did not get kicked out of my ass, which was fantastic. And, you know, I went into this job like, man, I work for Disney, I need some games, I know animation, I know what's up, I get this, I got it. I did not get it, and I do not have it. I realized when working with an animator, the lead animator, Paul and Durante, I knew nothing about animation. Nothing. Like, I was terrible at it, and I was inefficient, and I also had so much I could learn. And it was just opening his files and looking at the way he would work. I was like, this is amazing. What took me, you know, I would do 2 animations in a day, maybe. He would do 15 to 20 in a day, and he never really had to go back and fix them, just minor little tweaks, whereas I was doing really bad versions, and then I knew I had to go fix it. So I was like, all right, this was like back in school when I first got on the computers. I dove in, and I obsessed and worked like mad, trying to understand his work, trying to ask him as many questions as possible, learning every possible thing I could from him so that I could crack the code, right? And I had an aha moment, right? And I think we all have those in various situations when it's not that we're great at whatever it is we're looking into or we're studying or we're trying to do, it's that we finally see it clearly, right? It's a blurry picture that all of a sudden comes into focus and you get it. And then I worked even harder after that. I felt like I got pretty good. I became the lead there, worked with a lot of people that I even work with now that work over at Sony. And kind of got that itch again to want to make something, want to make a film. And I'd saved a little bit, so I was like, I'm going to do this while we're shipping games. And Paradox, third-party studio, we would make games in 6 months, you know, and they were, you know, they're the best thing we could possibly do in 6 months. I was proud to work with the people that I worked with. They worked super hard, but man, it's really difficult because you are constantly grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. And so making a film and trying to get it into festivals and all that stuff while doing all that is really exhausting. So the film never went anywhere, right? It didn't do anything. So I realized, like, okay, voice says, you need to quit again, but this time be smart. Learn from your past mistakes. Get a job that you don't really care about, that you can just report for duty and then kind of go home and have energy to creatively do something. So I said, all right, there was this game over at Sony that was being made, and at the time we were working on a game at Paradox that was like a Shaolin Monks game, right? And it got canceled by Sony because they were funding it because it was too similar to the in-house projects, and it happens all the time where it's like, oh, these projects end up being too similar, we're going to go with the in-house one. The in-house one was called Dark Odyssey. right? And so I went over and interviewed with Dave Jaffe. He described the character Dominus at the time as Martin Briggs meets Maximus from Gladiator. I was super confused. I was like, all right, cool. And then I was like, whatever. I want to animate and kind of go home at 5 or 6, which is unrealistic, even if it didn't go down the way that it did. But I was like, all right, let's do this. They hired me. Within the first 2 weeks, I broke my rule. I started animating the character, and I absolutely just fell in love with it immediately. There was the voice in my head that said, this could be something special. You need to really dig into this. You need to do this. So in the first 2 weeks, I animated the square triangle combo, the L1. This is totally nerd talk right now. L1 and square, and the L1 and triangle specials, and a few other moves. And those are the ones that ended up actually in the game. And I was hooked. At that point, I ended up putting in just tons of hours, committing myself completely to that project, throwing myself in, giving my opinion no matter what, right? Like, I was just constantly involved in everything I could, because it was a great studio. Santa Monica was a studio where people just shared ideas. Everybody looked at each other's monitors and was inspired, wanted to go back to their desk and actually do more work, right? To make the best game that we possibly could. And by the end, because I talk a lot, I thought, oh, they're letting me do this press stuff, right? Well, that's cool, because I just won't shut up most of the time. And Dave really didn't want to travel. He was like, yeah, I don't really want to go to other places. It was a bonus, a win-win. But I really still wasn't getting that this was a setup for something else. So at the end of it, Shannon comes to me. Shannon Studstill was the producer on the project, and she says, Dave doesn't want to do the next game. He's not going to direct it. So we're looking around at names. And at this time, I thought where she was going to go was she was going to tell me that they're going to put somebody in charge that I didn't like. And so she was trying to soften the blow or something. So this was like a get ready, some crazy person's going to be in charge. And that actually turned out to be true. So she said, yeah, we can take names around. And your name has come up several times. And at that point, it was like a ringtone. And I didn't hear anything after that because I was like, what? And I tried to play it cool. I was like, you know what, I gotta think about this. Let me go home. I'm gonna call my parents. This is awesome. They're like, you need to take this. Voice in my head's telling me, you need to take this. And of course I was gonna take this, but I needed something really cool about it, right? So committed to that. Started writing up the games while we were finishing the first one. I started writing up drafts. First draft I wrote was way too ambitious. It's always the first thing you write is gonna be insane. It's either gonna be crap or way too big. I think it was a little bit of both, to be honest. And it was Kratos going around to Crete and Rhodes and Sparta and Athens and the idea of one of the Titans stealing the sun and turning Greece into a dark ice age, right? But he was going around on a boat. Yeah, because you reuse shit for your whole career. That's all you do is just recycle things, right? So I dip back into that one a little bit later. But they said, this is insane, it's too ambitious. We ended up starting to write another draft. I wrote that draft with my dad, and that process of writing with my dad actually had us both realize, oh my gosh, what we really should be writing is a story about the conflict between Zeus and Kratos. That is the interesting thing. So ended up, I actually worked with my dad on the novelization of the recent game, hoping to work with him on some future stuff too, because, we've worked on so many things throughout the years. He's an incredible writer who's taught me a lot of what I know. So we kind of finished that draft, and then I realized, oh my God, I have to direct this thing. And I had absolutely no idea what that means, right? Jack was off doing his own thing, and I was left to sort of figure it out for myself. So I kind of did what I did, was just dive in and just try to figure it out. And at the time, I was not very good at listening to the voice in my head. So a lot of decisions were made poorly. A lot of calls were bad, and a lot of things that I pushed for, I should have let go. A lot of things that I let go, I should have pushed for, because I hadn't figured it out, right? So much of this job is actually connecting with people and figuring it out, but paying attention to everything, and being open to know when things are right and wrong, but it's all kind of your own internal judgment, right? And we had finished that game, and I was really, really tired, because we'd now done 2 in a row. I'd gone from one to the other, and I was exhausted. And Shannon came to me and said, look, everybody's going to go on their break, and they're going to need something to come back and work on. So you need to start on the third one. You know, take a little bit of a break, take a week or two, and then come back, and then start on the third one. And, you know, hearing a little voice in my head and saying, man, I don't know about this. Like maybe this isn't the right move. I ignored it and just dove right in. We started writing the script, laying out the game. And during that time, I kind of got approached by an agency, and I was like, oh, let me check this out, right? CAA says, hey, we want to represent you. The hell does that mean? And so I was like, all right, cool, let's try that out. And what that means, at least from what I'm doing, maybe this isn't what it means, is that you just go to meetings, right? Being with an agent is like, we're going to send you to a meeting. So I had a bunch of meetings that were weird, right? One of the meetings was, I didn't find out until like right before I got there, was for a guy who owned a Cowboy Bebop license, and he wanted to make a game. And I wasn't really prepared, so I was horrible in this meeting. I didn't have anything to dazzle him with. I was unimpressive. So that meeting went very poorly. I had a meeting with a development guy at DreamWorks. He had read a script that my dad and I had written and called us in for a meeting. And I was like, cool, we're going to get a movie made. No. This guy just called us in and said, oh, I really like the writing. I can't buy this movie, but I really like the writing, so anything else you guys write, I'll read it. Unless your script is based on some sort of source material. I mean, was it based on like an art book or a comic book or, you know, maybe a painting? I just made a movie about a painting. I just bought a movie about a painting. I can't tell you what painting, but everybody knows the painting. I was like, is it Mona Lisa? It's like, I can't tell you the painting. It's fucking Mona Lisa. So it's like, all right, the source material, that's the big thing. It's like, but if you write a book of this movie, and it's a hit, then I can buy it. I was like, what the hell do I need you if you made a hit book for? So I was like, all right, that meeting didn't go nowhere. I met with Joel Silver, and I was like, oh my god, Joel Silver, Lethal Weapon, woo! And that was a weird meeting. He was like this stereotypical producer of the movies, you know, go into his office, it's chaos. Chaos all around, people running around, he's talking on the phone, doing deals the whole time, and then gives us a couple of minutes, says, you know, I think that 300 was lots of God of War because people were primed for it. I was like, oh, that's really nice. And he's talking about stuff, I'm barely following any of this, and then it ends the meeting with, I like it, we should do something together. And I was like, okay. And he's like, all right, bye. Ushered out of the office. And I was like, what the hell just happened? He's like, you just got to deal with Joel Silver. We did not. And that never went anywhere either. It was so weird. So by the time I got another call from the agent that said, hey, George Miller's in town. And he's meeting with a bunch of game people, and he's really underselling it. He's like, hey, you should meet with him, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. What am I going to say? This is awesome. I would love to talk to that guy. But what am I going to do? He's like, just play the first 20 minutes of the game and talk about it. So I was like, okay, that's my wheelhouse. I can do that. That's easy. So we go to the meeting, and he's engaged, right? So first meeting, I felt like I was actually talking to somebody and connecting with them. And he's asking questions, and we said, gameplay, go into conference room, talk for like an hour and a half. You know, I'm talking about gushing about his movies, telling him how to fuck me up for flying for life. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, your short story in the Twilight Zone has me looking out the window to find the fucking gremlin engine every time I go on the plane. Or looking around the plane to see if John Lithgow's on it, because then I know I'm screwed. So he, you know, the meeting sort of fizzled down. He was like, oh, it's great to meet you, and left. And I thought, oh, that's not going to go anywhere, because none of them are anywhere. And then he calls the next day and tells the agent, like, hey, we want to work together. And I just finished the draft of 3, and I was really tired, and kind of to this point where I was like, all right, I don't know if I know anything, right? I wasn't aware of it, but I just was curious, like, I just don't know if I fully understand how to do this. I need to learn a little bit more. I need to be around people who are going to teach me. So I started making the decision, I'm going to go off and do this little walkabout and have some experiences, right? Work with George Miller, and that was the best decision I could ever have made, right? I sat in a conference room with that guy, we wrote, he taught me about directing, he taught me about storytelling, he taught me about character development and drama, like an education I could never have gotten in 100 years of school, right? It was absolutely astounding and amazing, right? And during this time, I also did a bunch of weird gigs, right? So I was a consultant, And I did work with Pandemic a little bit at a time when they were making a Batman game, and then there was this other company making a Batman game, Rocksteady. And their Batman game came out. This other one, a lot of great people at Pandemic, but it just was bad timing. It was 2 Batman games, you know, it's probably not going to be a Deep Impact Armageddon sort of thing. One Batman game to rule them all. And so, learned a little bit, and in fact, one of our lead designer actually came from Pandemic. I worked with him during that period of time. Such a small industry. Like, everything seems to connect. I did a stint at LucasArts, you know, which was weird. I went there with these high hopes, right? I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a great Star Wars game and a great Indiana Jones game, which I think is the aspiration of pretty much every director who takes on Star Wars, and then you get punched in the face. But my punch came internally from all the executives there. But while I was there, I had interesting experiences with George Lucas. The first time I met George Lucas, we went up to the George Lucas floor, which is like you got to get permission to go up to the George Lucas floor in Lucas, right? And it was for a meeting, like I don't even know what it was for. They just said you need to go to this meeting, which is the story of my life. I generally don't have any clue what it is I'm doing. I just go where they tell me to go, right? So we go up there, and the first thing George Lucas says to me is, "This is going to be one of those meetings where you shut up, sit down, and write down everything I say." And I was like, this is cool. So awesome. That meeting went poorly. But it led to another thing where I was actually invited, along with Hayden Blackman, who is I think a phenomenal writer. He was working at LucasArts at the time as well. And we were invited to this story conference, like workshop thing at the ranch, which is like, you know, nerd, mecca. It was amazing. I was just like floating on air when I found out I was going to be able to do this. And it was for the Star Wars TV show, the one that they never ended up making. And we were going to be doing stuff on the game side, so they wanted us to know about this and be in the loop to connect on these things. So we went there, and it was, you know, David Rambo. He was the showrunner of the original CSI. Lisa Randolph was a writer on The Shield. Matthew Graham created the show called Life on Mars. Really good, smart, very good writer. Ron Moore. He did a little show about Galactica, you know, probably not that way. Because there's also that outliner thing, right? So these huge people. Ron Moore wasn't there, unfortunately. That would have been amazing to meet him. But, you know, first of all, I'm staying in the Kurosawa, right? Every one of the rooms in the ranch are themed after the directors that he loves. And inside the rooms are like actual things from these people. So like watercolor paintings and hand drawings from Kurosawa. Super intimidating. Super intimidating. And I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. It was cool. But then George is walking people around the building, the main house, and talking about how he spoke to the architects, right? He didn't say, I want beams and yellow walls. He just said, okay, so the person that lived in this room did this. They were born here, and this is the things that they did all day. And that's how he sort of designed every room in the house, was behind characters, which I thought was a really cool thing. So we did the story comments thing, and I'm just keeping quiet, because there's all these really smart writers in the room, and talking about characters, and, you know, the voice in my head is like, you need to speak up, speak up, speak up. And I'm like, no. And I couldn't control myself, and I finally added something, you know, and said, hey, we should, I don't know what the hell it was. It was an observation on a character. And George Lucas looked at me like a head grew out of my neck and spit in his face. And he was like, no, that's a terrible idea. It's like, great, I'm going to shut up now. I shut up for 10 minutes, and then David Rambo actually suggested the idea again. And he didn't do it like to claim the idea. I think he liked the idea, and he just wanted to throw it back out there. And George looks at me and goes, that is a great idea. Put it on the board. I was like, put it on the board? What the hell? So we go for a smoke break after that, and Matthew Graham comes out and says, all right, you're in. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, George, man. Apparently he does that. To any new person who comes into the fold, he kind of punches him in the nose, lets him know who's boss. I was like, all right, great. That felt awesome. Glad I'm in. So, you know, that went well, but at the end of the day, I think behind the scenes, they were probably preparing for the sale of the studio, so the aspirations of making big, crazy games sort of went by the wayside, and I was like, I need to get out of here. I continued on sort of the journeys, worked with George Miller a little bit, worked with this crazy German music producer. The weirdest game experience I've ever had. Probably gonna run out of time by telling all these stories, but whatever. So this guy had the rights to Eric von Daniken's work. Eric von Daniken is this guy who ran hotels in the 60s. That wrote a book called Chariots and Gods, which is like this concept of the ancient aliens, right? Sumerian, Babylonian culture being connected to aliens, visiting us, all that kind of stuff. Really tricky stuff, translated into so many languages, huge book. So he wrote like 1,000 books after that. And this guy wanted to make a game of this, and he was like, all right, so I was going to consult and help them talk about how they were going to do this. And the meeting was in Monte Carlo. Right, Monte Carlo, like James Bond Casino Monte Carlo, right? The weirdest place that you're going to go talk game design. And I was really fish out of water in this place. I mean, we were talking game design on a patio of this like palatial hotel, you know, out in the sun. I hate being out in the sun. And these two Italian visual effects artists were talking to the German producer really loudly in Italian back and forth, and I had no idea what was happening. So there was a pad and a pen just looking back and forth, like, what the hell am I doing here? I just want to go back to the hotel and watch Star Trek. So then we have another meeting with the financier. That's why we were in Monte Carlo, because the financier is the one who kind of brought everybody out there on his yacht, right? What the hell do I have to say to a guy who has a yacht, right? And in the conversation, he's showing me the plans to his even bigger yacht that he's building. I was like, all right, I really don't know how to have a casual conversation. But the weirdest thing about all of this experience was the music producer carried around this little dog, this little furball, spherical furball. And he took it everywhere. And when we were going to a lunch one of those days, and we're in the car going there, and I'm just like, the dog's in the back, and I'm just going, man, I hope he cracks the window open. You know, like, it'd be bad if the dog was sort of stuck in a car and it was really hot. Then he takes the dog into the restaurant, and I'm like, oh man, I felt bad to leave the dog in there, but I'm really stressing about the fact that he's bringing the dog into this really nice restaurant. But I don't want to say anything. And I figured, oh, he's going to probably ask them if he can bring the dog in. Doesn't ask them, just walks in, carrying the dog. We go sit down, and then I'm stressing out. I'm like, all right, what is he going to do with the dog? Is he going to hold the dog the entire time I say, and then he starts ordering for the dog immediately, right when we sit down. And I don't even know what the hell he ordered, because in my head, I'm freaking out, because he just set the dog down, and it's just, boom, bolts off, and just goes under the table next to us. And it's like in the movies when you see somebody crawling under the tables making a wedding reception and people start standing up, you know, and you just see the path of the dog, you know, the dog's really going around on all of these tables. And he's talking to me the whole time, and I'm just hearing the sort of Peanuts teacher, because I'm like, oh my God, you need to do something about the dog. He's in there, he's like, notice the dog, what's happening here? This is freaking me out. Finally, I say something, and I'm like, dude, I think your dog's trying to lick somebody's foot or whatever. And he's like, oh, bimba! And the dog zips out from under the table. And he kind of just puts his arm down like this and jumps up in his hand, and he's like, let's talk about the game. Game design is weird sometimes. So at that time, I started to realize, like, I think I learned something. I think I know a little bit about directing. I know a little bit about storytelling. I need to put this into action. I wasn't really directing anything. The boys said they need to go do something. So I had talked to Crystal Dynamics a while back. Got in contact with them again. We agreed that I would direct the Tomb Raider follow-up to the reboot that they were currently working on. So it wasn't out. They still had another year of development on it. They said, oh, we'll fly out now, and you can get to know the team, work with everybody. Amazing team, great people. A bunch of people actually worked on the new Barlog, actually. And, you know, almost immediately when I get there, the cinematics director quits, and they have nobody to write the cinematics. So they were like, hey, I know you were supposed to kind of get acclimated and start prepping the next game, but we need you to jump in here and direct the cinematics. And I was like, well, all right. was a little pissy about it, but whatever. I said, yeah, this could be cool. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. My son was born at that time, and that was a hard first year, and that kid stopped napping fairly early on in his life, which was, I believe, the opening salvo of a war to destroy us. Not just kidding, I love you. You are going to destroy us. And at the time I was working until like 1 or 2 in the morning every night, so I was really just run ragged all the way at the end of that experience. It was like 2 years worth of work that we were doing in 1 year. But still, an amazing learning experience. I was able to understand how they made games, and during that process it helped me understand, maybe this is not for me, this follow-up. For me to really utilize all the stuff that I've learned, I really need to jump into something that I can make my own, right? Something that I can really own myself. And I don't know if the follow-up to this game will be that, because they made a great first game, and I think what they need is to make that next step. And the follow-up game is amazing as well. And I was pitching some ideas to them. I pitched the no-cut camera thing, which they were just like, okay, weird. And at the time it was way more ambitious than we ended up doing. It was just a crazy idea. And so I was like, you know what, I don't know if this is for me. And I was talking to Shannon Studstill, who was the producer all the way back on the first God of War game, now running the studio at Santa Monica. We talked, and Eric Williams, somebody who built Kratos, who worked at Paradox, who continues to work with me my entire career, because there are 2 people in this whole business that I trust without question. I trust a lot of people, but without question, right? That is Yumi Yang, and she was the producer on God of War, absolutely the greatest production partner I've had in my entire life. All producers are going to have to measure against her in the future. And Eric Williams, the guy I've worked with all the way back in my first, sort of foray into the fighting game community of Paradox development. So, we decided to come back. That first year was really tough. I was a bit more attuned, feeling like I was smarter to listen to what was being said inside, right? And was tested very early on, because the script that we wrote was a good script. It was a good idea, but it was definitely, I was being kept up at night with that voice telling me that this is good, but this is not what you need to be making for the first one. The first one needs to be different. And before I told anybody on the team, I had a lunch with Shannon, and I wasn't going to tell her the idea I had, because I hadn't really figured it out. I just had a germ of an idea. But when I told her that we needed to get rid of the script, I got scared, because when she looks at you, it's like a teacher looking at you and you did your homework, but you feel like you didn't do it. So I was like, no, I have another idea, I swear. And I told her about the spoilers carrying the ashes to the top of the mountain. She was like, I love it, let's do it. So from that, just kind of went through this entire process of working on this game, which was so different from working on 2. I still felt like I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I also felt like I at least had an ally with these voices in my head that I knew if I trusted some of them at the right time, if I knew, hey, this is not the right thing to do, I'm going to know, right? If this is not the right idea, if I need to hold firm on something, if I need to push back. I feel like I made less mistakes on this one. That doesn't say I didn't make mistakes, because I made a lot of them, but, less than 2. And, it was a great experience, a lot of incredible people. I think I had time to tell this one story, because I think it's very interesting. I don't know how much that has to do with this, but I think it's a funny story. So in 2016, we did the reveal, the God of War reveal thing, playing to the orchestra and all that stuff. It was also the same time that Death Stranding's trailer was revealed for the first time. The first time you ever see anything that Kojima was doing. So, day of the show, we're in the green room. We had just done our run-through, and we were going to do a full-dress version of the show, sit in the green room, and wait until the actual show happens after that. So Kevin Sharp was the producer at the time. We were both sitting back there by ourselves, and just trying not to get nervous. And the curtain, because there's basically just a box of curtains around us, that was the green room. Curtain opens up, and this Japanese guy pokes his head in, looks around, and then closes it. I was like, weird. But whatever. And about 10 minutes later, curtains open up in a really dramatic fashion, and only, basically like that moment in real life, that everything turns in slow motion, and there's like a group of Japanese guys come in, and Kojima's right in the back, right? And it's like a light is behind him, and everything is slow motion. There's like fucking Magneto tile just going over his face. And I was just like, oh wow, right? I've never met him. I think I've informally met him just like a hi kind of thing. And he stops and then says, hey, your game looks really, really cool. And I was like, can I see your game? Because nobody had seen it. Even in the dress rehearsals, they never showed the trailer. It was so secret. There was a lot of security on that E3 and nothing leaked, so that was awesome that nobody saw anything. So we are sitting in there and just waiting for the show to start. And then finally, one of the guys gets up and walks over to the table, and in my mind, I think he's coming over to say, Kojima-san would like to talk to you about games like he thinks you're really good. That's not what he said. He said with absolutely total sincerity, no irony whatsoever, he said, we are going to eat Panda Express. It is going to stink. We're sorry. Really bowed and walked back to the table. Greatest story of game development I've ever had. I was just like, oh my god, I can die at this point. It was so awesome. I actually contacted him recently to see if it was okay to tell that story, and the response was, he doesn't even remember that. Yes. So, I guess, to me, the summary to all of this, to roundabout poorly answer that question, is that every single person who gets into any sort of big creative endeavor, even a technical endeavor, any endeavor in which you throw a lot of yourself in, arrives there at a very circuitous path. It is not a straight line. We do things that we don't expect to end up in a place that we probably didn't even fully understand that that's where we wanted to be. For me, for sure, I had no idea this was where I would end up, and this is actually what I would want to do. I didn't know it. I didn't even know that it was a real job. But throughout all of that, it is that ability to be open and fluid to change, to accept the things that are coming in, to trust yourself. The voices in your head, really, it's your instinct, it's your gut, people say, right? For me, they just have, voices of different actors that are talking to me. But the reality is, we all have within us this understanding of what we want to do. And what we want to do, our vision, is what we should follow, right? And God of War 2, I was following a lot of the team's vision and just trying to make sure everybody was happy and then trying to see if I could get what I wanted out of this. And there was a better way of trusting yourself, of believing in yourself, even when you don't, because I don't believe in myself all the time. I was freaking nervous as hell standing on the side of the stage. I was like, is it too late to switch careers? I don't want to do this. But that feeling, that fear, is what I had throughout my entire career. But getting on the other side of that, pushing through that, and trusting what you have inside, trusting the vision that you believe in, that's the way, I think, to get anywhere. And that's any job, that's anything. Like, believing in yourself is the number one thing. And knowing that you do have something to offer, that you could make something great. It doesn't matter what job that you're doing, you could do that, right? And then the even shorter answer to this is, you get in the game industry specifically by any damn door you can. You take any job, you do anything that you can. It doesn't have to be the thing you want. A lot of people think they're going to come in and be a director right away. And you could totally do that by starting your own company, right? And there are a lot of people that do that, and some that are very successful because they are probably natural-born directors. I was not. It took me a long time and a lot of work, and I'm still working, and I don't really feel like I've gotten there, right? I feel like I have years and years to figure out this, although I'm so tired right now, so I don't imagine like what it's going to be like in many years. But I think that's it, really, is to really follow yourself, follow the voices inside of you, because they will steer you wrong and steer you right. That's the fucked up part about all of us, by the way. They're going to say bad things as much as good things, and it's the years of experience that are going to help you figure out which one do you listen to. All right. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Ask a question. Wait. No, that's what's fucked up about this whole thing. I never saw that person whom I bet $50 again. So I guess I got a couple year out of it instead of $50 again.
Very good question.
And I don't have any announcements today. I know people are thinking, like, oh, who's still going to announce something? Nothing else to say.
When is God of War 5 coming out?
See? You just... All right, I'm going to give you the game industry staple on this one. It's going to come out when it comes out, if we're even making it, because we have no idea.